Hi everyone. Today I reviewed a game called AR Classroom. It's an educational augmented reality game for kids. But I wanted to talk about hand fatigue for mobile AR applications. Now, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, I refer to when you use an app with a device for relatively long period of time, you hold the device in your hands, you feel that your hand get tired just for holding the device because it has weight, right? So, for example, if I use my iPhone and I use my iPad, I feel that the iPad causes more hand fatigue because it weighs more. Now, of course, we are not holding weights here in our hands, but just for example, my iPad, which is 9.7 inch, weighs 470 grams, around 1 pound. And compared to my OnePlus 6 smartphone, that weighs 170 grams, so 300 grams less. I also seen some developers that just mixing with the for example, if it's a game where the action takes place both on the floor and in front of the user, so you can actually for sometimes you just hold the device down, sometimes up, so you don't actually find yourself just holding the device in front of you for a long period of time. Now, of course, adults would be more resilient to this, but I also noticed another thing, that when I was active, actually physically active with in the experience, I reached a point where my hand actually felt, tired as much compared to if I held it, kind of in a specific static location for a long period of time. There's also another thing that I noticed is that there are some apps that are not intensive, where you can actually hold your elbows against your body and then hold the iPad, the device, in my case an iPad, and it was actually quite comfortable. But again, for apps that are more intensive, and more intensive action that requires a lot of hand movement, this is not practical. Now, there are also a few things which you can tackle this thing that I didn't mention. So another thing is to develop an app that can actually support two modes, right? A standard mobile game mode and one in augmented reality. This way you actually allow the user to, for example, just get a rest for a few minutes after maybe playing in AR and just play it normally in standard mode if the user just wants to sit down on the couch and comfortably without actually being standing or being physically active. This is something that you can do as well. However, it doesn't fit any type of game, and personally I found out that the games that were designed from the ground up for augmented reality actually are more compelling in general. Another thing that you can do is can combine standard mobile and AR in the app. For example, with Ghostbusters World, you only engage in AR when there is a ghost, right? After you just see the map, this is a standard 2D map that you can actually see like Google Map style, and then when you see a ghost, discover a ghost, you can engage it in augmented reality, and that actually game session, the battle itself, takes it's very short, relatively very short, takes about 1 minute, 2 minutes most, and that's it. So this is something you can do as well. I also recommend if you're developing an app and there are some things that are not maybe necessary to be in augmented reality, or they can actually be placed in a lower angle, like on the floor instead of in front of the user, do it. For example, if you have a loot box in augmented reality, right, and you want the user to open it in augmented reality, okay, you can do this by just placing it on the floor instead, by just placing it in front of the user and then making the user continue using the app where the virtual content is in front of him. So just try to not prolong this the session where the user hold the device in front of him, and try to do the other things where the device can actually be rotated and just face towards the floor. So these are a few things that I think developers need to be aware about when they are designing applications for augmented reality, for mobile augmented reality. But again, when you're going to have AR glasses and we can use use the app without needing to hold the device, this of course will solve this issue once and for all. But even then, for example, when you develop applications for mixed reality, for example, like the Magic Leap one, all right, you still will need to interact with the world with something, right? So it can be the controller itself, or it can be something that with hand recognition. And actually, Magic Leap actually talk about it in their documentation and mentioning about hand fatigue when you use hand interactions, because the Magic Leap can recognize different types of hand gestures, and the decision whether to use hand gestures for the entire experience or just for part of it, or maybe include different types of user interaction that not rely just on hand recognition, is something that developers need to consider. So this is it. If I have more things to talk about this subject, I will post a second video and talk more about it in depth. But this is the things that I wanted to bring up for developers to be aware about when they are developing applications for mobile AR. So if you enjoyed this video and find it interesting and useful, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll give you more interesting guides in the near future. Thank you, and see you soon. Bye bye.